You ever see one of those moments online that's so quick, so tiny, but somehow it blows up like it's world-changing? Well, that's exactly what's happening right now. The clip we're about to talk about is 6 seconds long. A hug between Erika Kirk and Vice President Vance. And it's managed to divide the internet like nothing else this week. People are calling it inappropriate. Others say it's just a warm Christian hug. And now Joe Rogan stepped in with his take. And you already know what happens when Rogan gives an opinion. The conversation shifts completely. So let's break down what actually happened, why the internet lost its mind, and how Joe Rogan just became the voice of reason in one of the weirdest political viral moments of 2025. It all went down at a Turning Point USA event in late October. Erika Kirk, who's been carrying on her late husband Charlie Kirk's legacy, walked out under the bright lights of a packed arena to introduce Vice President Vance. The room was buzzing. It was one of those patriotic, high-energy crowds that Turning Point events always draw. Erika took the mic and said something that instantly caught attention. "No one will ever replace my husband, but I do see some similarities between my husband and Vance."
No one will ever replace my husband. No. But I do see some similarities of my husband in JD.
It was emotional. It was raw. She was talking about faith, leadership, and purpose. But to the cameras and the audience at home, it came across complicated. Then Vance walks on stage. He gives her that polite, warm smile politicians have perfected, steps in for what looks like a respectful embrace, and boom, that's the moment. Her hand slides up behind his neck, fingers brushing his hair. A quick pat. It lasts barely 2 seconds, but when you watch it slowed down on Twitter, it suddenly feels like 10. Someone freezes the frame. Another person zooms in. Within an hour, screenshots are everywhere. One still image looks affectionate. Another looks totally innocent. But context doesn't matter. The image is what travels. By the next morning, Erika Kirk and Vance hug are trending worldwide. You could almost set your watch by how predictable the internet reaction was. Meme accounts start posting captions like, 2028 power couple loading. And that wasn't a hug. That was a moment. Political TikTokers begin breaking down the hug like it's a UFC replay. Hand placement, posture, facial expressions, while body language experts pop up with side-by-side comparisons of romantic versus platonic hugs. Meanwhile, conservative and liberal Twitter are both losing it, but for totally different reasons. The left mocks the family values crowd for freaking out. The right argues it looked too intimate and undermined Vance's clean-cut image. And while all this is happening, mainstream outlets like People, India Today, and Times of India start publishing clarifications. They note there's zero evidence of anything romantic. It was a public event, a quick embrace, full stop. But by that point, it's already too late. The screenshots outnumber the facts. And this is exactly the kind of moment you just know Joe Rogan would have something to say about. He hasn't seemed to have addressed it on the podcast yet, but if he did, you can already picture it. The studio's dim, cigars on the table, Jamie queuing up the clip, and one of his guests cracks a joke about the hug. Rogan would probably laugh that classic Rogan laugh and shake his head like, man, you give the internet 6 seconds of human contact and they'll build a whole Netflix series out of it. He'd joke for a second, but then he'd shift into that thoughtful tone he's famous for. The one where he starts connecting the dots. Look, he'd probably say, this woman lost her husband. She's trying to keep his message alive. She's leading an organization. She's under a microscope. And people are out here dissecting a hug? Come on. It's not hard to imagine him using this as a bigger point about how the internet's addicted to drama. Rogan said before that social media rewards outrage because real stories don't move fast enough. This would fit right into that philosophy, that politics has turned into entertainment. In his words, it's not about policy anymore. It's about optics, thumbnails, and who hugged who. And if there's one thing Rogan always reminds people of, it's that fame turns authenticity into performance. He'd probably sum it up with something like, if you're famous, everything you do is content. You can't just be genuine. Every facial twitch becomes a statement. And honestly, that's the kind of clip that would go viral instantly. Because even if it's hypothetical, he's right. Now here's where things get deep. Because beyond the memes and overanalyzing, what this really highlights is how much pressure Erika Kirk's under right now. Think about it. She's not just Charlie's widow. She's now the face of Turning Point USA, an organization that's been synonymous with his name for years. Charlie built that brand from the ground up. He was Turning Point. When he tragically passed, Erika didn't just lose her husband. She inherited a legacy. The responsibility, the scrutiny, the spotlight, all of it fell on her. And to make things even heavier, she's stepping into that role in an era where everything you do is instantly turned into content. That's why this hug hit people so weirdly. Because to Charlie's fans, Erika wasn't just a public figure. She was his. She was part of a power couple that represented family values, faith, and purpose. So seeing her hug another man, especially one as politically powerful as JD Vance, hits emotionally for people who still associate her with Charlie's memory. You can see how the internet twisted that one moment into Erika's moved on, when really, it's probably just her being supportive in a political setting. But to the audience, optics matter more than context. And that's the weird reality she's living in, where every smile, every touch, every word is analyzed through the lens of grief and legacy. Then you've got JD Vance in the mix, the man who, let's be real, is quietly setting himself up for a future presidential run. The guy's strategic, articulate, and appealing to the new conservative wave, but his image is built on being the wholesome family man, devout Christian, loyal husband, traditional values. So when that viral clip dropped, a 2-second hug that looked, to some, a little too close, it didn't just affect Erika's reputation. It became an optics problem for JD too. You've got to remember, JD's already been under the microscope for comments about his wife's religion. A week before this event, he publicly said he hopes his Hindu wife might one day convert to Christianity. That blew up online, with people accusing him of being tone deaf. So combine that controversy with a viral hug from a grieving widow, and yeah, it's a PR nightmare waiting to happen. But here's the catch. JD didn't pull away awkwardly or panic on stage. He handled it with calm professionalism. You can actually see it in the footage. She goes in for the hug, he gives a polite squeeze, steps back, adjusts his jacket, and goes right into his speech. No tension, no energy that says something's going on. That tells you a lot. JD's a calculated politician, and this moment, intentional or not, is just another example of how fragile public perception can be in the internet age. To really understand why this moment blew up, you've got to look at the narrative both Erika and JD represent: faith and family. Charlie Kirk was known for pushing strong Christian values in his speeches: traditional marriage, moral revival, faith in the public square. Erika's speeches since his passing have echoed those same themes. So when she says JD reminds her of Charlie, it hits a specific emotional chord with her audience. She wasn't saying it romantically. She was probably talking about values, strength, or leadership. But because people are so used to scandals, they project what they want to see. That's what makes this whole situation symbolic. It's not about the hug. It's about how people interpret modern Christian conservatism. You've got a widow showing strength, a vice president seen as the heir to the movement, and an audience ready to turn it all into a soap opera. It says more about the times we're in than it does about Erika herself. Now, let's zoom out and look at Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk wasn't just the founder. He was the movement, the charisma, the controversy, the online energy. That was all him. When Erika stepped up to carry that torch, a lot of people underestimated her. But if you've watched her over the past few months, you can tell she's grown into the role. Her speeches are confident, emotional, even fiery at times. She's been hosting events, meeting political leaders, and essentially becoming the face of the next phase of Turning Point. That's why the hug went viral, not just because of optics, but because it symbolized something bigger: the blending of eras. Charlie's legacy meeting JD's political future. Two powerful figures connected by one organization and one ideology. But as inspiring as that sounds, it also creates tension, because every move she makes from here on out, every collaboration, every appearance is going to be compared to Charlie's way of doing things. People will keep asking, is she honoring his legacy or rewriting it? That's the impossible balance she's walking. Let's talk about something real: grief in the public eye. When you lose someone close, there's no right way to handle it. Some people isolate, others pour themselves into work. Erika chose the latter. She's been on stages, giving speeches, smiling, hugging people, all while dealing with a loss most of us can't imagine. But the internet doesn't give grace. It doesn't see pain. It sees performance. That's what makes this so tough. She probably thought she was being warm and supportive introducing JD Vance. But to the online crowd, it was too much. It's wild how empathy gets turned into speculation. And honestly, that's the downside of fame in the political world. You're not allowed to be human. You're not allowed to have a moment that looks even slightly imperfect, because the audience has already written your story. So where does this all lead? If anything, it shows that Turning Point, and by extension, the broader conservative youth movement, is entering a transition phase. Erika represents continuity, keeping Charlie's vision alive. JD Vance represents ambition, the next generation of conservative leadership. Whether or not the hug means anything deeper, and all evidence says it doesn't, it symbolizes that shift. The emotional legacy of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, blending with the political machine of JD Vance's America First conservatism. It's not romance, it's alignment, a merging of faith, power, and message. That's why the internet couldn't look away. By now, you know how this goes. The outrage explodes, the memes fly, Everyone overanalyzes, and then the truth slowly seeps back in. After a few days, people start realizing the footage looks completely different when seen in full. The tone, the timing, the crowd. It all makes the moment way more normal than the headlines made it seem. The outrage dies down. Erika posts about faith. JD returns to politics. And yet, that 6-second clip will stay online forever. Because that's how the internet works. It never forgets, even when it's wrong. At the end of the day, this story isn't really about a hug. It's about perception, grief, politics, and the impossible standards we hold public figures to. Joe Rogan was right. If he had said those things, he'd be spot on. The internet's starving for drama. It's not enough to see people doing their jobs. We need scandal. We need emotion. We need something to argue about. But sometimes, a hug is just a hug. Sometimes, two people can share a human moment in a political world that's forgotten what humanity looks like. And for Erika Kirk, who's navigating grief, legacy, and leadership all at once, that might be the hardest thing of all. So what do you think? Was it overblown? Was the internet just projecting? Or was the moment really as strange as it looked in still frames? Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.